Alright, bear with me, you guys. Just trying to make a like stupid announcement. And my stuff's giving me a lot of trouble. Okay, so let me just pain in the ass freaking thing. Okay, just to make sure it's up and running. I've been testing this stuff, trying to make sure it works, and to be quite honest, I wasn't sure if it would. Alright, come on. Do this, do that, click that. Load the fucking thing already. There we go. Come on. You can do it, phone. Fucking brand new phone, this fucking thing. Anyway. Alright. It's going to be a little different tonight. It's going to be very awkward. Won't lie, shit's going to get heavy. The gravitational weight, gravitational pull in this room has actually increased, so everything's... No, just fucking awful. It's fucking terrible. Sorry. Now, what I'm going to try to get through here, there's going to be some stuff where I might have to refer my little notebook here, my journal that I've been keeping for a while now. For when it comes to some interpretations and stuff that I might have been thinking about, writings I might have had regarding the works we're going to kind of walk through. Guess going to be dealing very much with inspiration, thought processes that I've had kind of along the way. There's going to be points, like I said, it's going to get a little awkward because I'm going to have to like switch out to, different capture or whatever on here. And in doing so, there's going to be points where I'm going to have to kind of switch out some things, especially in the one web page capture thing I'm trying to use to go through works that I could have downloaded them and made them part of the slideshow, but that's not what I wanted to do. Because I run my own show here. Screw you guys. No. The concept of it basically was that some of these pages I have to use the page because what they offer as far as zoom quality goes is something I don't think I can pull off on this easily. So we're going to talk all sorts of stuff like that. Hopefully get some interactive people here. That would be fucking hot because that would make it a lot easier to deal with. I'd have some stuff to back and forth with. I was begging one of my buddies to come in and join me on this one. He's one of the guys I've gone to a number of museums with. He's probably one of about 3 or 4 people that can actually tolerate going to a museum with me. I think I might have mentioned it before in a show, a previous episode or whatever, previous stream. I am very slow through museums. And we're pretty much going to start off on one of the most obvious points of that. As such, a lot of people don't like going to museums with me. My wife probably at the very top of that list. She can't stand it usually. Or when I try to be nice to her, it makes my trip very unsatisfactory. So usually it's like when we went to Chicago 2 years ago, I had already been there twice for business trips, and I'd already gone to the Art Institute of Chicago twice. So I'd already spent several hours there before, so I could kind of breeze through a little faster with my children and my wife. So, yeah, we primarily just focused on things that they saw at. We had made them watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off beforehand, so they saw stuff they recognized from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. All right. So I'm going to start off, like I said, pretty heavy. All right. The painting in front of you guys is Van Gogh's Rain. is at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Um, the museum, which is, you know, my main stomping grounds. This is where, you know, out of any museum I go to, you know, this is home. Um, and I'm starting with this one actually, because it's kind of there's a lot between me and this painting. Um, I have literally stood in front of this painting for so much time that it could actually... Wow, I whistled on that one. Sorry. So much time it could probably be measured in days. I was trying to do it in my head, try to estimate it. I'm thinking I'm above 48 hours in front of this painting throughout my life. So I'm somewhere around that range. At least 2 days. Cumulative, whatever, however you say the word. When you add it all together. But the so make this one part thing a little bigger for me. The thing about this painting, though, for as long as I stood in front of it, it's always confused me. Up until February of last year. If you look at this compared to any other Van Gogh, especially given the time period that this was done, this is when he was staying in the hospital in Saint Remy. He's institutionalized, but this means this is after Paris. This is after his breakthrough in Arles. He is really at this point. He has become Vincent as we know him. Whatever people classically think of Van Gogh, he's made that movement and become that in this painting, before this painting, I should say. So as such, it's bizarre when you look at it compared to other works, even other works from the hospital. That's what I meant to look up. Damn it. All right, well, but we'll go through it. If you look at this painting, I hope it jumps out to everybody. If you're at least sort of familiar with Vincent, this is a gray painting compared to anything else he's done. Even going far back into, I'd say even back to the Hague days, when he was still very much trying to do a Dutch style of painting. This is gray, at least in when he was in his older, as I said, pre-Paris days. He was dealing with a lot of, chiaroscuro contrasting. This is dull for Vincent. And it always stood out to me, and I couldn't quite figure it out for a long time. I don't know exactly when this painting was made as far as his time in Saint Remy. My suspicion is it's either very early in that time or after he had a relapse while in the hospital. And the reason I'm saying this is because this painting didn't make sense to me until I had my breakdown. For the most part, from February 1st, really until I started the medication, I guess I was on my son's birthday, I believe, the 22nd of February. This is how the world looked to me. And sorry, I told you it's going to get heavy. It's going to start heavy. Hopefully we'll lighten up before the end of it. Um, it's that loss of color that you can see in this. Um, so my belief on this painting has become now the reason it's so different is that he must have gone through a similar loss of sight, so to speak, when he had his incidents. And that this was probably very close to one of those times. Either right before the relapse or something like that, or right after, until he had really gotten to get his brushstroke back. So, yeah. Now Vincent did self-commit. That is something to think about as I get to this next thing that I'm about to say. What started to hit me on February 14th when I was in front of this thing for another like hour and a half was how the ground surges. The grounds of the hospital here in the front, and I'm pointing to the fucking screen like you guys can see what I'm looking at. But if you look in within the wall, that ground is surging up against that wall. And he's trying to break free. Now, as I said, he's self-committed, and I don't know if it's any different than it is nowadays, where if you self-commit, you can just pull yourself out whenever the hell you want, technically. But it's not really about the hospital. It's his mental state. He's trying to get the hell out of that. And you can sort of get a better idea of this in the fact that if you look beyond the wall, you see what is more typical of his brushstroke. I mean, it's still choppy strokes. It's still all the stuff we're used to in the foreground, too. But you get those more flowing movements, if that makes sense. You see it in the bushes. You can see it in the mountains. That's the world he wants to be in. He wants to get out past this. The raindrops on this are basically bars on the window. It's holding him back. Everything there is, So his mind, his will, is pushing against it, trying to get out. But he's being held back. The plowed field, scarred again. I'm pointing like you guys can fucking see. I should turn on the light thing behind me. I don't know. That's almost like an anchor there. Now, I don't know, again, I don't know if there's any way to find out whether or not that's just like even more symbolic, if it matched the scar of his ear or anything like that. I couldn't tell you. But it's definitely, like I said, that road bump. Like I said, I keep referring to it more like an anchor. It's holding him down from this force to really plow through that wall and get the hell out to the world that he wants to be in. Like I said, Philly's my home ground. It's my stomping ground. So this painting and I have a very long history. But I didn't get any of these real thoughts on it really until I'd cracked, and it's kind of sad to think that. But that's what I'm trying to point out to people before they really get to see it. I mean, there are still lighter tones. This is one of the best online versions I could find of it, but it's not. It's not as good as it could be, as far as, and as I've said many times, you can't see paintings through a computer or even in a book. It doesn't work that way. You got to get out to find them. But I thought it was important that we kind of tackle that horror, the 600-pound gorilla in the room first. I got to get to the right thing before I start doing this. So I wanted to start there. And as I've said, if you can't tell, you're artistically illiterate at this point. Vincent obviously is my idol. I refer to him as my master. I'm his apprentice. That's the way I viewed it, and I still view it for all these years now. So when, I had my breakdown, and I was prescribed art by my psychologist. He literally said, "You have to go to museums now. You have to go get yourself back." Obviously, Vincent's the first thing I'm thinking of. I was going to use sunflowers as an example. Come on. No, don't tell me you're not going to do this. Fucking piece of shit. Come on. There we go. Okay. I was going to use sunflowers as an example. But I figured that was kind of easy. And when I was using the Van Gogh's museum's site for it, for whatever reason, I couldn't get the zoom function on sunflowers to work. We'll be using stuff from that site a little later. But right now, like I said, I couldn't get that one to work, so I figured I wanted to find something a little closer. And actually, this is more in lines with what I was thinking, going back into it. So this is Antgos Irises. I was lucky enough to see this painting when I was traveling with Van Goghs many, many years ago. It's a gorgeous piece, and the reason I'm really pulling this one out is because of the color contrast in it. Now the irises have faded a little bit as far as color goes. You may notice that they appear a little more blue than irises should be. Irises are typically thought of as a violet color. That has a lot to do with, if you're not familiar with it, Vincent used a paint, Red Matter Lake, which is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not very consistent. What happens over time is it degrades pretty badly. So paintings where he intended something to be more of a light violet, he'd mix this in, and then over time it has faded. His bedroom's actually another good example of that. People always, if you think about Van Gogh's bedroom, you think about it with these blue walls, but in fact they were intended to be like a lavender. He writes about that in his letters regarding those paintings, and but every version you see now, it's very blue. I think it was the Chicago Art Institute that did a analysis, and they had actually picked a few samples off, and they were able to find microscopic droplets still of Red Matter Lake in there, and that's when they, oh shit. I believe that's the color it was. Anyway, but they can find this in Le Bercus, the flowers, the peonies, I believe there's on the wall behind Madame Roulin. They were actually very pinkish, and now they look very white. So it's the same concept going on. But I'm getting off on a different topic now at this point. This is what I started thinking about when I started painting again. And my first painting, after I had my breakdown and had started my medications and was starting to work again, is this one here. my tulips. If you're someone that's transitioned over from my Facebook page, which I don't think anybody here is from there yet. This was my first painting back. A lot of people really seem to have enjoyed it. Nobody's bought it or bought any prints of it yet, but whatever. Not saying anything. I'm trying to have some fun with this. But now you're going, well, you look at that one, that's, how are these really that related other than their flowers? But I'm playing with the different color contrast here. I'm playing with other complementary colors, obviously, using the red and greens of the tulips here. And then also offsetting the yellows against the violets in the background of the mulch area. And off the periwinkles as well. When I look at this, compared to I think how other people look at this, I'm not looking really at tulips. I said before, I like to think of myself as a symbolist in idea, at least. That is to say, I'm not going to use always what are our classical symbols. I'm trying to think of a good example of one of those, but it's slipping out of my head right now. Instead, I'm kind of more talking in a personal level. So in other words, I may be, painting this, but in reality, I'm thinking about something else entirely. And that's what I was in this place. I mean, I'm looking at these tulips really as fire. That's what they are to me. They are, literally the artistic flame being relit. And they are not necessarily attached to those leaves and the weeds surrounding them. They are burning through it in my head. So, I mean, these leaves of the tulips and the stems are all twisted around each other, writhing in and out. And basically that's all the bullshit I was trying to work through. All the stuff that had been ostensibly killing me up to that point. I swear it gets later. It does, eventually. Once we get past all any of this stuff that I'm talking about, my inspirations. It's all dark before that. So I was really trying to, as for lack of a better term, literally light a fire under my ass to fix this, to start working again, to get through everything. It's interesting now to look at this print, especially because it's shrunk down from like the actual size I had used for the print. Those aren't like those dark colors. They're all viridian. They're not anything like on the leaves, the outlines. It's all viridian green. They kind of look like black on my screen here, so I don't know how it's coming across to anybody else. But and I wish I could kind of say really in general that I was thinking much deeper than that whole idea of just more of a, I'm just trying to sort of set myself back on fire. The reality of it was at that time period that a type of depth wasn't really there anymore. It was very primal at this point still. I should have, but I didn't have anything to compare it with, so yeah, I'll load it up on another screen later. I was thinking about, I should show you guys the cave too, but this was very much about trying to find all the stuff that was missing. So there's a lot of techniques where sometimes some paintings I'll mix them in, sometimes I won't. In this one, it was trying to literally, okay, you got my dash stroke in the backgrounds, you got the, I mean, they all really was dash strokes. The leaves were actually built up over like a couple different options of doing things, but but making that a little more solid in color with the outline, all that stuff was plays on old techniques that I'd used that I had forgotten they were going. So I was trying to remember them over that time. Let's go on here. Let's get the pressing too. I'm going to press the hell out of everybody here, I swear to God. So this is Yosef Israel's Last Breath. Now this was also at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. To be quite honest with you, I don't know whether I've ever passed this painting before. I probably did. The room it's in is a room that, especially in college, just didn't appeal to me. And I can't put it any simpler than that, or any. It's a room with a lot of very classical pieces. Big, super well rendered. Maybe certainly not as bright as, say, the Impressionists, as far as colorful as the Impressionists go. And at the time in college, that's all I was looking for. I was looking for either, Impressionist, Post-Impressionist, something like that. And even old Dutch masters, pretty much, outside of like Rembrandt, I ignored. So I don't know if I actually passed this painting before the breakdown. I honestly don't know. I don't remember it. But when I was going through there on Valentine's Day of last year, I was looking for literally any art. Like, literally, I was just so starving, is the best way to put it. I mean, I was a starving artist, haha. But, like, mentally, I just needed anything I could get. And, this one in particular, especially, as I said, in that time period, I was in a very dark place. It kind of, it gave me a place to mentally put my family. Yeah, and it is. And especially, like I said, it was when I stumbled upon it, I was wanting to be that guy in the bed. And being able to kind of use them to imagine what my family would have gone through. It helped pull me out a little bit. As such, I felt the need when I was finally starting painting again. After I did 3 original pieces, I worked on a series of studies. We're going to come through those. This was not the first one. I'm just putting it as the first example because it's probably the most powerful. And to be quite honest, it was one of the best ones I did. I see it in the flash. I actually was impressed when I did these, setting up this slideshow last night, and I was like, wow, holy shit, the proportions and almost everything's pretty damn close. So I felt I had to go and do a study of this one. I don't use blacks in painting. I try to avoid it as much as possible. So I tried to transition as much as I could into colors, into dark, mixtures of phthalo, uh, burnt umber for the really, really dark areas. Maybe like a couple of them I had this weird like alizarin, viridian, burnt umber, phthalo, or no, French ultramarine actually, it wasn't phthalo, blue mixtures going in there. And yeah, and that's just it. We don't know how this guy died. Um, you know, what illness it is, what took him. It's just that confusion of death. Uh, we assumed just from some sort of hints there that he must have been sick, just because it looks like they've been sitting around. The book on the chair with what looks like probably a blanket or a maybe like a shawl or something that she had on her. Yeah, and I'll be honest, I never really went looking for the context of it. I kind of felt like if I found the context of it outside of my own interpretation, it would have hurt it in a sense. My old philosophy teacher from from college, used to talk a lot about how what an artist intends is kind of pointless. And he tried to make it, he had better ways of putting it, but he was saying that in the end, the artist paints with one concept in their head. Yeah, they're out to tell one story. The viewer finishes that, so it's that viewer's job there at the end. So really, you can take a piece with zero context and work through that. It doesn't have to be necessarily, knowing dates, knowing the artist's history. All of that is kind of peripheral. It doesn't. It's or it's all a surface level information, and you don't need that. You as a viewer should be going past that. I wish I still had the clarity that Dr. Webster used to have when he talked about stuff like this. But so I will say this thing was a monster to paint. It's not a very the original is very big. I don't gotta make it clear. Joseph Israel's version is very big. It's a good, really good sized painting. My version is not. My version is 19 inches by 30. It's not tiny, but it's not a huge piece. And I hope, in a sense, in doing that, it became a little more intimate. I don't know, because I look at his original and I think to myself, how you get engulfed in it. It's a shame too, because before I started my study of it, I had actually wanted to. I had actually wanted to see it again, and the museum had taken it down. Just rotating their collection out. So I was actually bummed when I went there and I didn't see it again right before I started it, because I really did want to get little hints of stuff that I might be missing. That just doesn't come through. Like the print I'm using here, that's as best as I could find online. And I tried my damnedest to, get my contrasts up and saturation levels up so I could actually kind of see what I wanted to do with it. But that was basically as good as it got. I think I had a little bit more tweak when I did it in my before I printed it, but I never saved that copy of it. That was a rough painting, though. That was rough to get through, in a lot of ways. Because, like I said, it was a memory of a dark place when I stumbled on it. Yeah, when I was trying to work through. I mean, it was months later I was trying to do this. I was thankfully on the road of recovery, but yeah, it was a lot of it was painted with a very small brush. I think I used a double aught for a huge portion of that. So it was a tiny, tiny little brush. Just to put it in perspective, again, my painting is not very large. It's 19 by 30. The window area, and I'm talking the window, not the things on the other side of the window. The window area was 3 hours to paint. So it was a fight the whole time, but definitely worth it. Thank you. There you go. It's still working. Like, let's put it this way: the thing that caused my breakdown, unfortunately, is still around, which is primarily my job and the stress that it causes. I'm trying desperately to get out of it. I've been trying since April of 2017, and I can't seem to get a bite anywhere. So we keep fighting. Yeah, moving on a little bit. On the same trip, now I didn't get to see this painting, this print, but I found the print of it, like a postcard, at the museum's shop. So I snagged it right up. It's a Hiroshige, like the Impressionists of the 19th century. Japanese prints are a huge inspiration to me. And this one really grabbed me because, again, in thinking about this pathway out of the depression I was feeling, you got to find places for hope, too. You can't just talk about the darkness. You got to talk about something, look for something ahead of you. And this one really grabbed me, primarily because I've been fascinated with Mount Fuji since I was a kid. When I was little, I think I was second or third grade, we had to use God, was it Print Shop? I think that's what it was. To make a story, and one of the stories I tried to make was about a sumo wrestler that was like so fat that he went to worship at the base of Mount Fuji and broke it. Then it ended up eating all the pieces. I mean, obviously it's an active volcano, but that would have been crazy. So I've always been kind of fascinated with it, but I've never been to Japan. So I kind of looked at this print as I'm that cat. The cat's looking off into. It just out of a major depressive attack. Just make sure I get your name right. Perler. I had a mental breakdown. The snowball of it started in January of 2014 when a friend of mine had died, and at the same time there's a horrible amount of stress that was building at work, and it never really let up. And in February of 2017, I had kind of lost my sight. Not that I couldn't see things, but I couldn't see color like I could. So a lot of the stuff I'm showing here was working through that. So yeah, thank you. That's it's a battle. It sucks. Like I said, I can only hope that, like, everything I do now, for the most part, is I refer to it like I drink poison every day when I'm dealing with my job, and that night I have to take my antidote when I paint. So it's a constant, you know. I'm sorry to hear about that. I have ADHD as well. I used to confuse like like my depression and ADD used to confuse me with anxiety. Like I used to kind of feel like I had anxiety, and it wasn't only till it was really only once I started on through the therapy and through the medication that we kind of nailed down that the two were working together to masquerade. So. And the positive, that's actually like like I said, that's what this one is, and I'll flip to my version of it. This was literally about hope. Um, you know, like I said, I'm that cat, and I have a goal. You know, I want to see Fuji. So no matter how dark, you know, the swing may get sometimes, I was trying to. I actually had tried to sell this painting at a show. It was a juried show, or whatever, I had back in December with the Chester County Art Association, and but it didn't sell. And now my kids won't let me even show it. But I think it actually works out because honestly, this painting hangs right near my front door. Um, it's a relatively small piece. I think it's. Hold on, I might have it written down. I don't remember. I think it's like 11 inches by like 14 or something. Come on, there's no way I didn't write this down somewhere. It doesn't matter. It's pointless. But so it fits right in this little spot that we have. And yeah, I'm no longer in counseling. We kind of went on a as needed basis. We set up, you know, I guess mental exercises to kind of keep work out. I mean, I hate to say it this way. I you know, he never said it, and I'm not really implying it, but I kind of feel like my therapist kind of got tired of hearing me bitch about work. So he's just like, do we really need to do this anymore? It wasn't really like that, but it was more of a kind of got wherever we're going to go with it until I can get the hell out of this. Yeah, right now I take Wellbutrin and Adderall. So one's for the depression, and it's a bit of a stimulant to the Wellbutrin. So it kind of works with the Adderall to fight the ADD. And it's literally just enough to basically get me so I can actually work with very little bit of motivation. It's hard to tell. Like I constantly say to my psychiatrist, it's hard for me to tell whether or not I really have trouble concentrating at work, or whether it's just that I don't want to concentrate on work. So I only take it once a day. I basically just get through the work day, and then after that, that's why I get a little scatterbrained on here, because it's like it's done the curve, you know. Really, for the most part, from 3 o'clock on at work, I'm done. You know, I try, but I can't get, you know. So it's it is what it is on that point. Like I said, if I can get the hell out of this job, I may find it's not necessary for me to take it anymore because I don't have any issues in front of a canvas. You know, like I can be here and no medication for the ADD, and I'm fine. Um, I can stand in front of a painting, in a museum. At the very start of this, I was putting up Van Gogh's Rain, and like I said then, I've stood in front of that painting for days. Like, I mean, if you count up all the time I stood in front of it, 45 minutes here, 30 minutes here, an hour there, it's at least 48 hours, easily. So it's one of these questions that we have when I work with my psychiatrist that I know it doesn't go away, but whether or not, but it can be exasperated. So it's something where I had never taken the medication before this breakdown. I had all the symptoms. Once I started talking to my psychiatrist, I had tons of symptoms. And that's and right there is the key. As she was saying, it's something that right now, especially with the absolute loathing I have for my work and the people I have to deal with, it's so hard to stay focused. And it isn't so much even about focusing on the job, per se, that she wanted to do. She wanted me to be able to focus on everything outside the job when I'm at the job, if that makes sense. So it's not there to necessarily keep me focused on something I don't want to do anymore. It's there to keep me focused on the things that are important to me, so I don't let the bullshit I have to deal with fuck me up again. If that makes sense. So that's what, it's one of these things where, again, my psychiatrist and I are basically at the point where I see her every 3-4 months for medication updates. And then she basically asks whether or not I'm still at the job, because we can't figure out how much of my conditions are now permanent versus how much are things that I can work around even without medication, with just focus activities or mental training, and how much is just the shit job, I guess. Like we can't really figure out in the end how much is my job and how much is me until I'm out of this job. And at that point, we can start to reevaluate what I need to take, when I need to take it. And that's what they're kind of working off of for now. Keep going down this slide a little bit. Well, I write too. I have a journal that I keep along with all my work. So I talk about my paintings, paintings I look at. I talk about anything that's going on stress-wise at work, whatever I have to, basically at that point. For the most part, like I said, it's more about coming home now and painting, and that's my antidote. So that's where we, like I said, that's basically what my therapist told me and my psychiatrist told me to focus on, is using the medications as a bridge to keep the company I work for, Siemens Energy, keep Siemens bullshit out of my life and get back here. So like I said, I drink poison for 9 hours a day, and then I come home and take my antidote with linseed oil and pigment. The next painting I have up here is after Daumier. It's the water carrier. And see, basically, I look at this as that bucket's not water. It's my mental health. It's the stuff I got to carry right now. And I stumbled upon this in the Barnes Foundation. It's a tiny little piece, very small little thing, but you know, it hit me pretty good. And this is another one of those ones where I saw it and I was like, I got to do a study. I gotta do my version of this. I gotta talk about it in my way. So again, I don't use blacks when I do this stuff. I just don't feel when I look out at the world that there's any real natural black. You know, like if I'm talking like ivory black paint, like it's just something that I don't see. I always see a tint of blue in it, at least. So again, if you look at this, and again, I know, as I said, it's prints and online versions of it never really show you what's there. When it comes to paintings, I'm actually going to show you a little bit of that later on. Hopefully, if this works right. That so these dark areas are not black. So. I'm having one beer. I've spoken to my doctors about it. They said basically 1, 2. You're okay. I know the warning labels say not to, but my doctor said, like, look, for the most part, and again, at this point, I took my Adderall at 6:30 this morning, so for the most part, I've taken my wave off. It's already generally run out of the system. Trust me, this will be my only one, so don't worry. I haven't had one since
a week and a half ago? 2 weeks ago?
I think. Alright, so like I said, that's my Daumier. This is Eugene Delacroix, St. Michael defeating the devil. I believe this is actually on the roof of a church. I actually found the study of it in the Barnes Foundation. And I was going to do a study of the study, but it was really rough, and I was like, you know what? I don't want anybody to think I'm shorting it. Like, I don't want, if you Google that, you have to dig for a while before you find the Barnes Foundation version. So I didn't want anybody to think I was short shifting myself there or whatever. So this is my version of it. I intend on giving this one away to a friend. I won't say much more than that because I don't want them knowing who they are. But he went through a really rough point, and my understanding is he looks at the image of St. Michael as a very inspirational image for him. So I wanted to keep it focused on that, and so I did it with my own personal demon at a fight, but like I said, I had seen something after I'd worked on it. Actually, I think I was just about finished it when I saw what had happened for him, and I was like, dude, I gotta give this away. It's a matter of figuring out how to ship it. I think I figured out all that stuff. I have another painting I wanted to ship out to somebody. So, I was kind of waiting to figure out from both of them how I was going to do it. But, and generally, I mean, this is when I'm symbolically about as subtle as a jackhammer. I mean, I still have trouble sometimes figuring out whether the devil for me here is my job at Siemens, or to the depression. I go back and forth sometimes with it. But this piece to me was really, really important that it be, I mean, like the Delacroix. Oops, I'm clicking it. I'm not even the right screen to click it. Sorry. Oh yeah, that did work. Why didn't it work on the screen there? That's fucked up. Okay. The Delacroix version. I mean, now it's an average of about fourth. Delacroix version of it is bright, and again, I cranked up the saturation a little bit when I made my print of it to work off of, and then I cranked up even farther in my head when I did the next painting. Because again, now this is all about trying to find color again. This was literally about getting my eyes back. So I went mega super hardcore on it and jacked up everything on it. But I will say this: out of most of the paintings I've shown of these studies, this one just flowed right out of me. I had no issues with this one. I was working on it in the 1 or 2 hours I get a night here or there, and it just cranked itself out, man. It was done. It's great. I'm going to actually do another one because like I said, I'm going to give this one to my friend. And I've been holding on to it because I wanted to do the second one, but I think I'm actually going to get rid of it. Send it to my buddy. And then do the other one because I think I'm almost scared with it. It's right over here, like right in my face. And it's like, it's always looking at me. I'm like, I don't know if I can do it the same way again. And I shouldn't do it the same way again. So I think I'm going to, if I get rid of it, and it's not in my sight anymore, it'll finally happen for it, and I can do it again. Last one here, I think it's the last one, I'm not sure. Yeah, last one here is one of the more recent pieces. This is my horse shed in winter. This piece was really bizarre as I was going through it. If anybody was on my Facebook page at the time keeping track of this, I kind of had a revelation about it later on, like just about as I was finishing the piece, that I started this piece on the anniversary of my friend Bob's death without really. I was aware of it, but it was more of a. I had to start it. I'd intended to start it earlier in the year, but I had gotten the flu, and then I had gotten like a lung infection right after the flu. Like it wasn't directly related to the flu, but it was, and so I was like just horribly just could not function for the first 2 weeks of the year. I was gonna say the month, but it was of the year. So I started this on January 18th, which was the anniversary of my friend Bob's death, which that was the initiating incident in 2014 that led down to the breakdown in 2017. I didn't finish the painting.
Let me make sure of this. I want to make sure I got the time right.
I believe I finished it on February 1st. I'm just going to double check to see if I wrote it down. So this is when it starts to get awkward because I have to look at things. I think I'm in the right area. No, okay, wait, there goes it. Oh, no, I remember now. I believe I finished it actually on Valentine's Day. I'll double check that on my phone at some point. But, because I actually had finished it at the... The anniversary of everything seemed to line up with this, I'll put it that way. And so I realized I was kind of picking through my own anniversary of my breakdown. If we go back to the idea of those tulips in one of the early slides, and I'm going to quick jump over to it just to show everybody again. Okay, you go through those twisted leaves and all that stuff. Up too far. That's the same concept in the foreground there. It's all that twisted, brambles and all that stuff. That's that, going through the mental illness. It's going through the depression, trying to sort out my shit with work and finally trying to come to terms with Bob's death. And once we get through that, there's that little clearing there where the shed is living, It's that nice little open area. This place was actually on my way to my job's old building. We'd moved, I think it was January 15th. It was somewhere around there. We had just moved right around the time I was starting this painting. And this thing literally is a blip on the highway to me. So what I had to do was literally pull over on the shoulder in order to get the photo to work off of it. And when I had started the painting, what I really had wanted to do was make it like a musical composition. It was only later, like I said, I started to figure out, I was doing this on this date. I was doing this on this date, this anniversary. My intention was originally just to start, like, if you look at the background, going back towards the sky, that grayish light blue tone there, going down into the more magenta and violets of the far background trees, going into a little warmer and lively evergreens, along with these trees that just hadn't, and this, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but there were a number of trees I was facing all winter that never seemed to lose their leaves. I have a Japanese maple out front of my house that never lost its leaves. They got brown, they got small and shriveled, but for the most part, they held on to everything all winter. So you have these leaves on these trees that were doing it. And then mind you, the picture was early winter, but this wasn't done until middle winter. But then I also was looking at it, and I'm getting ahead of myself. So then when you come down into the actual snowy ground area, and the snow is meant to be just a little tonal difference. So I was looking at like a call and response in music, where you hear like a da-da-da, and then you're like da-da-da, whatever. Kind of going for that concept. So then when you go through the clearing a little farther, you have that very dark violet brambles going on there, mixed with, some of the greens that are kind of like the next layer. And then beyond that, again, these orangey, yellow ochre ones in the front. And I kind of looked at there's, the big tree on the side, and there's actually a little one off to the left that I was looking at, like basically, musical bars, as that's what I had intended. I think I did it, but at the same point, like I said, I started to pick through it, and I started to realize I was doing other things in there mentally. Now, let me see here. Now, through all of these, I've said it a couple times, I've said that you are not really seeing my paintings. You're not really seeing the old masters paintings I've put up here. Unless you've gone to the museums that these are in, or the church where I think the Delacroix is, if I remember correctly, you haven't seen them. Because you can't. And I'm not trying to, be snooty or snotty or whatever, I'll make a little callback to Ferris Bueller's Day Off. take that one off and put this one up. Hopefully this works. All right, looks like it's working pretty good. I'm using this one as a really, really good example. I'm going to go with another one too. I have a couple I'm going to go through here. This was at the Van Gogh's show when I was, again, junior in college. And this painting held a surprise for me. And I'm going to try to zoom in on this and hopefully this works. I might have to move it a couple times because I'm only using this like small little interact thing here, so bear with me. I can only move the screen like so much at a time. Now my buddy Bill and I went down on this 4 in the morning train down to DC to see it at the National Gallery. And this painting surprised the shit out of me. And we'll zoom out for everybody again a little bit, but I wanted to show this part specifically. Does it, shit, I don't have any way to verify whether or not you see this or not. I don't think you do. You guys see my mouse? I don't think you do, right? When I'm showing the mouse? Like, well, no, I won't let me do that. Okay. Doesn't really matter. All right. When you look at this, hopefully everybody gets their screens out full size and gets to look at this a little bit. You can see the blue streaks there along the middle area. The streaks that are kind of right next to those, all right, they look a little pinkish. All right, but like a very pale pink. Those are actually kind of violet. They're actually very pretty violet. And excuse me, belch. That's why I wanted to show this, because when I talk about how you can't really see these paintings unless you get the chance to actually go and look at them. This is one of the best examples I have of it. I'm going to show another one in a second that I really enjoy. Very snotty suddenly because I've been very emotional all day. But anyway, this is one of them, man, because that little bit, and I know it doesn't seem like much, but I'm telling you, man, listen to me when I tell you that really did change the painting for me. And the reason it does is not just because of that. It's that it's other places too. If I'm not mistaken, oops, no, I moved that. I didn't want to move that part. Oops. I want to move this one a little bit and then try to go in here. I believe it's in there too. It's been a while. I mean, like I said, I was talking junior year, so this is what I'm years ago. All right. I believe it's in the fence line too. I can't find it. I think it might have been like one of those streaks. I could be wrong. It's been a long time and my memory's fuzzy already from the beatdowns I've had. But when you look at it now, zoom out, not in. Especially when you compare it to the rest of the painting. You're talking about a violet color against its complementary color of yellow. You know, and that's a big difference. You know, and how you look at that. It really does change that painting. And there's like I said, there's a couple places in there that color doesn't really show up. And that color doesn't show up in a lot of Van Goghs. When we were at that exhibit, it was 100+ paintings, I believe. No, couldn't be that. 70+. It was like 70+ paintings. That's it. The only reason I remember that is because after the show, I had been doing some math in my head, and I realized that I had seen up to, at that point, 99 Van Gogh paintings. And my school was planning a trip to go to New York. So I had my buddy we made it a point to make sure that Starry Night would be my 100th Van Gogh. It's my friend Davin. He had to walk me through the MoMA like this. He's guiding me around. I had to trust him. That's real trust to somebody, just so you guys know. That's real trust. That he didn't put me in front of, like, the Postman Rulon and just, okay, Brian, we're in front of it, Starry Night. And I'd be like, fuck! That's real trust. So, Davin, if you're out there, man. He's probably not watching. I doubt his brother Matt is either. But, so it was like 70 plus Van Goghs that we'd seen. And they were probably, the irises come to mind. Because they are a little bit more violet than what this image I had earlier showed. There was some trees that they also have this color that was not showing up in any of my books. I mean, I pulled this out before. I'll pull it out again. Now, this is only part 2. Okay. Yeah, it's only part 2 of it. But I have the complete works, so I've seen every page, every print of every painting he's got, and the ones that the Barnes Foundation used to not allow you to get copies of, I now have copies of. So, this is a subject kind of close to my heart, because I really do believe you guys on here, when you watched me do this this bridge, sorry, it's on the horse head now, but when you saw me do this bridge, you didn't see the painting. You saw me in the act of it, and if you go to my Facebook page, you can see a better photo of it, and you still haven't seen the painting. And, you won't until it's somewhere on display, unless you get invited to my house, which is very unlikely. I don't like people coming over to my house. If I get to know you, maybe. But there's stuff in this painting that, in my work, that you'll never see on camera. And I hate to put it this way, I do it on purpose. I purposefully, am an asshole to anybody online. I make sure there's a color subtlety that you just will not see. I'm kind of looking at one right now, and it's this little scuff on one of the bricks, and it's like, you'll never get it. You'll never see it. Never. I don't care how good a camera I get to take a shot of this. You'll never see it. And it's kind of this with these pieces. All right, now let me get to my next one here, because this is another important one to me. And hopefully this works really well, because I don't know if it will. Take that. No, take it all. Take it all. God damn it, take it all. All right, let's see if this will work. I was hoping for better. All right, let's see here. Are the zoom functions in there? Do I see the zooms? All I want to do is zoom, and boom, boom. Okay, let's try it this way. Cool. Okay, there we go. All right. Just going back to another one. I used to hate this painting. I'm just going to be honest. I used to not like this painting at all. Because, again, I was looking at it through books. And I think I held this up once before when I was doing one of my paintings. Something wrong. Clicking on Bart. I'm going to try to get in here. This is probably going to be harder than the other one. Actually, you know what? No, there's some of these right here. Maybe that work. Some of these specks here that you see, the dark ones look a little brownish. There's actually a bit of red to them, like in the alizarin crimson idea. Oh crap, I'm moving something around. I don't want to move. What the hell am I moving? I think it's the image slideshow. It's the stuff we're done with. The one that I really noticed the first time around way down here. Let me see if I can find it. I don't think it'll let me zoom in any farther on that one. I'm going to try to put as much to the center as I can.
You see that little speck in the yellow? Does anybody see that? I know nobody's here to watch it, right? Nobody's here responding anymore.
Perla girl left, right? So,
it seems to stop talking. So, but that little speck there in the yellow is really a good example of it. And like I said, you can't see it as it is, but it's actually a nice like alizarin color, and as such, that's just like, almost like your Rosetta Stone for this painting. So there's actually a lot in this that has that tone that you can't see here. What the fuck is that? Okay, I don't care. What is that? Go away. Be gone, you. Try to talk. All right. And when you put that in, especially with all these nice, beautiful green viridians, it balanced the painting, which I don't think it has in print form. And you can feel free to disagree with me. You're wrong. I won't hold it against you. You're wrong. But it's another one of those ones where I'm trying to make a point that you've never seen this painting unless you've been to the Met and you've looked at it. And that's why I'm just trying to urge people that, look, I'm not saying you have to go out and see these ones. They're great to me. But when you think you like a painting or you think you don't like a painting because of something you've seen online of it, you're wrong. And it doesn't matter what your opinion is on it. You don't know. You actually don't know your opinion on it yet. That's what I'm trying to drive home here. I know it sounds like a pompous-ass thing to say, but it really is truth. All right. So we've talked a lot about Vincent. And he's the easiest for me to speak about. I'm getting some pop-ups here, sorry. Just because, again, I've known him, like I said, I've studied him now. This is what, let's see, took the summer class. Like, I'll give you my history with Vincent. When I was a kid, I didn't like him. And I'm talking like 6, 7 years old. I didn't get it. I don't think at 6 or 7 years old you can get it. You pretty much either like art that's just super bright and colorful, or that's like super realistic looking, because you don't understand, and you may be able to kind of teeter back and forth that is like you like cartoons, but then you like, Michelangelo or something like that. Whatever, someone like that does like super realistic kind of style. Even Michelangelo, we can argue that technically a little bit, but you're more of a, I think almost as a kid you're like more of a classic girl. At least I was. And so I don't think you could get it, and I didn't really start to appreciate Van Gogh really until probably middle school, and definitely really kicked it on in high school. Specifically, I had taken a summer class at the University of Arts, and towards the end of my painting class there, my teacher Jules had assigned us to do a portrait of one of our other students in Van Gogh style. And she gave me the portrait of Dr. Gachet to work off. And, God, I wish I could remember the girl's name.
Jen's another one. I don't remember. I apologize if not that she'd ever find me or know me. I'm Adam, I'm sure. But I had done her portrait in a sort of pseudo Van Gogh style, and it was like that's when it clicked because I had been trying to paint earlier in that lesson, and I was never happy with it. But when I did that little portrait, man, I was like, fuck, this is shit. This is some good shit. This is what I want to do. And so I kind of started. That's really what kicked me into being a painter. Before that, I tried to do like illustration stuff and comic books and stuff. And I've flirted back and forth with that in the years since. But for the most part, if you ask me what I am, that is to say, you go up to somebody, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a garbage man or whatever, whatever your job is, if that's something that gives you pleasure. Not that I know people go, I hate my job, but you say to a teacher, what do you do? I'm a teacher. You ask me what I do. The first thing I'm going to tell you is I'm a painter. Okay, before anything else. If you ask me what I am, even. My kids already know. Don't take this in the wrong way. Before I tell you I'm a father, before I tell you I'm a husband, before any of that, I'm a painter. And that's where I lost sight for a little while. That's one of the things that we kind of kicked onto is because when my friend Bob had died, I had kind of sealed up my studio because I associated his death with a painting I'd been working on, and I just couldn't get past it. So to try to live without painting and try to be normal, for lack of a better phrase, to wake up and go to work and come home and, watch TV with the family or play video games for a little bit and go to bed at 10 o'clock or whatever. That didn't work for me. And the reason it didn't work for me is because art is so much a part of my life and my psychology that everything that I experience, period, comes through that. In a lot of ways, I could say that I did not even understand what it meant to actually love my wife and children during these 3 years that I wasn't painting. Or getting heavy again. Because my language had been taken from me. And maybe not taken from me, that's a bad way to put it. Because I had done it myself. It's more like when you hear, if you watch The Last Jedi, Luke cuts himself off from the Force. That's what I did. Alright. So to speak. I use that a lot. I'm sorry. I say so to speak a lot. As I said, talking about Vincent is the easy way in for me. When I started getting back into art again, as I said, I was starving. So I went looking at people that I'd never looked at before. And I picked up a lot of cool stuff, I will say. I've learned some things. I'm going to show this artist, and you're going to like it, damn it. I actually want to show this because I actually don't like their paintings. It's one of these weird ones. I stumbled on them in the Barnes Foundation. I had never been to the Barnes before that February. Save that and go here. And I can't zoom in on this one like the other ones. So it's just Google image or whatever. This is William Glackens, the Philadelphia artist that Barnes collected. Barnes has, I think, one of the larger collections of Glackens' work. He's colorful. I always feel like when I look at him that he's almost there. I think that might be one of the reasons why Barnes liked them, because Barnes is a big fan of Renoir, and when I look at Renoir, half the time I always feel like a lot of his stuff is almost there. I'm not a big fan of him myself, so when I look at Renoir's paintings, either I feel they get overworked, or he does stuff where it just looks blurry, like he's not concise and finished with it. I also get a feeling of like later Degas out of this as well, and so I'm not a huge fan of it. I feel like he's doing some cool stuff. He's just not finishing it. Like he's touching on some cool stuff, but he's not gripping it with both hands yet. But this is why I'm bringing him up. In the Barnes Foundation, there are a number. Let's take my tongue out and make everybody gross. There we go. That's funny. I thought this episode had been long over by now. I really didn't think this was gonna last this long. Yeah, let's keep talking about it. There's a whole bunch of his drawings. His drawings have some fucking life to them. I was trying to get another one of let me see. I'm gonna go back to my notes here for a second. I bought this book literally at the Barnes. I can see it at the background, I think, right? Because I had gotten there and I realized I didn't have anything to write notes down on, or draw or whatever. It turns out they won't let you sketch there either, but so I bought the book and the pen, and then they told me I couldn't use the pen there. That was funny. I was like, "Fuck you, assholes! You fucking piece of shit! You just took it anyway." But and I'll start this off again a little bit before I start going into the Glacken's notes. One of the things I was always proud of myself on was that I had a good knowledge for artistic interpretation, or good instinct for it. But again, I cut off everything. So for 3 years, I didn't do anything related to art at all. I mean, I'd gone to the Chicago Museum a few times, but even in that, I wasn't. Actually, no, I think that was. Hold on. No, I think that was actually before the Bob's death. So take that back. That doesn't count. Let me see. Hold on. I know how I can solve it. Then I went to there after his death or not. Get out of the fucking piece of shit. Hold on. Okay, I did go, but it was only a few months after his death, and I was actually still trying. I take that back. I did try to paint for a little bit before I completely sealed it off, but a painting went haywire. I stabbed it with a knife and threw it around and whatever, and then I sealed it up the place. But like I said, I hadn't done any real artistic interpretation in a very long time. So I was trying to get back to that before I started painting, because I kind of feel those two skills are directly related with me. So as we head to the Barnes Foundation for this, I go back to my feed here so I can see stuff. The notes I start with are really kind of bad. They're very simple. Like I said earlier about, when it comes to artistic interpretation, surface level shit's just surface level shit. When it was made, who did it, when it was made, where they were, that's really not that important. But it's kind of a good place to start. All right. So I'm just going to put some notes in here. And the first things I found, one of the first ones I found was, Barnes Foundation painting. Again, I'm going back to Vincent. Apologize, but it was Vincent's painting the factory. Now, I'm using this because there's a point of like, this is my man, you know, so to speak. This is Vincent, man. I should know this shit. And this is what I got. Van Gogh, industrial area, probably late Paris time. Path is splashes of gray-blue / alizarin, flanked by chrome and light yellow. Vegetables on both sides, holds a Japanese asymmetry to it. That's my artistic interpretation of the factory. It's fucking terrible. And the reason I'm bringing that up, that's like one of the first paintings I found in place. Where is it? Where's it? On the first Glackens I come across. Then we all went home. This is all, yeah. Nice energy in the drawing. But as I get farther, Glacken's paintings in this room, Degas' sensibility but missing something. His drawings have a healthier feeling. He seems to have been on a journey like me and Van Gogh, so I can commiserate it. So in other words, what I'm saying is like he looks like he was looking towards Degas and Renoir as inspirations, trying to find that, like he was looking for something in them. And I guess I leaned heavier towards Degas only because the life of the drawing that I see there. I don't know. It clicks me in a way that's more. It's half. Actually, it looks like half Daumier drawing and half Degas. Probably going that way, but. And then towards the end, this is literally like as I'm leaving, I finally wrote down, and I think this was actually. I think I might have sat outside and did this right in front of the barns. I come back to Satine and Glackens as the discoveries of today. Satine's brushwork was intense. Disappointing my former teachers didn't suggest I at least look at his work. Glackens' paintings felt pale compared to his energetic drawings and watercolors. Both have touches of attributes I like in artists, though both lack the mastery of color I seek out more often. So, and I could probably go through and find, like, I went back to the barns on my birthday on the 19th of June that year, and I wrote more notes of everybody. Like, it was just a matter of, like, see if I can find anything else. I tried not too much to write, tried to not write too much of duplicate stuff here. There we go. Glackens, the bathing hour. So the bathing hour, Chester, Nova Scotia. This is a rare Glackens painting I like, from what I can see, because it's above doorway. This and its mate, the raft, are both over doorway, so they're hard to see. But the vibrancy is stronger than some of the others I've seen from here. Just little stuff like that. So I came to like Glackens a lot. It's just because it's barns, I have trouble getting actual photos for you guys to work off of. So if you get the chance, get to the barns, check them out. Maybe you'll interpret it different than I do. Like I said, I don't want to say I dislike his paintings. I just don't think they're as strong. And let's go to Philadelphia Art Museum again. My home turf. And as I flip this, flip that, take this out. Oops. Oh, get the fuck out of here. Come on, what are you doing? What are you doing? No. Okay. This painting pisses me off. This is Claude Monet. The reason it pisses me off is this painting should be impossible. Okay? That's why it pisses me off. I'm going back to my notes on this one because I think I wrote a pretty good one. This was the next day. So this would have been on Valentine's Day. Here we go. This painting infuriates me, but oddly in a good way. Nothing but sea and sky. No point where one sees land. It seems like an impossible painting, but he handles both brilliantly, the sea and sky. They are very different animals, so to speak. There's my favorite phrase again. With different brushstrokes. A dance of blues and yellows, and of pinks and light green. I guess what to say it reminds me. It reminds me of the free and isolation one gets when traveling on a boat and the shoreline vanishes from view. So again, I'm kind of pulling it back up a little bit. I think I might have. That was December, I think I went back. But I don't know if I wrote about this one, so give me a second. I just want to take a look. I think I did it. I wrote one little brief note. Gorgeous play of color, symphonic. That's because I was writing in my pen with my pen in the art museum. Something I've done 1,000 times, but this time they gave me shit for it. And the only thing I had was a charcoal pencil, so I had to like limit what I could write because it was quickly wearing down and very thick and pain in the ass. So that's all. It was more about the symphonic thing. So I just want to pull that one out because it's such an oddball to me. And I don't know, I feel like on a composition level, it shouldn't work. But it does. And then I'm going to actually show you guys something else I found there that I liked, which has a similar theme to it. And this is going to blow people's minds that know me. Those that actually know me pretty well are going to be like, what the fuck? Yeah. But I think it's the same kind of idea, just sort of turned on its head. And I think I figured out why, when I say it infuriates me, actually, I love it. Why I love that Monet is because of the same thing. Okay, I gotta drag this down a little bit, I think, to make it visible. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Hello? No. You cannot be a douchebag. Oh, it's being a douchebag. Where's the... That's weird. I'm not getting the scroll bar. I'm just going to poke around the page a little bit, see if I can find out where the scroll bar went to. No, that's the download. I don't want to download it. That's weird. Okay, well, that didn't work like I wanted it to. I get to like... Alrighty, well. This isn't working like I wanted to. Sorry. So you don't get to see the whole painting, but it's not like it's much different on the bottom. What one is this again? It's untitled number 124. Untitled number 124. Callum Inez. Maybe saying that wrong. I apologize. I assume they're still alive. I wrote about it says, I've said before I feel disconnected from most modern art, though on occasion certain ones like this can give a bit of zen to me. Meditation and seeming calm hiding the noticeable stroke. So if you look at this, actually if you get in front of it, there's noticeable brush strokes. But there's also that dividing line. And that dividing line is I believe it might be black if I remember correctly. But there's a third color there. And that's kind of the important part of this. That dividing line is what I'm kind of pointing at. Because if I were to be able to flash up that Monet again real quick, that dividing line is that same thing. So you have the same ideal, you know, of a balance. Only, like I said, it's literally turned on the side. And I think that's why this piece appealed to me. I really do say a number of times that I don't have a very strong connection with a lot of modern artists, a lot of abstractionists and stuff. My problem is that I believe in storytelling. And I believe that art's a language for storytelling. So the problem is if I have something that I'm trying to tell you, but I'm speaking my own language, and you don't speak this language, I don't know how to tell you that language. Does that make sense? Now again, I can go back to the whole thing about the viewer and finishing it, and that does work technically. It does fall into play here. But we can get closer to the same interpretation as what the artist was going after and what the viewer is getting, if we are in a similar language at least. The way I liken it is to, I go back to when I talked about Japan earlier. You know, I'd love to go to Japan. I know almost no Japanese. I know Onibasoto Fukubauchi, which if you've seen my paintings, streams on here, you can see it on my door. I know, Nihongo Gashikoshi Hanasimasu. I speak a little Japanese. That's about all I speak. So those two phrases aren't going to get me very far. A little damp down here. Anyway, so what I was trying to point to there is if I were to go to Japan, I guess I have a phone that can translate all sorts of cool shit now. But the thing is, I go to a market and I want to buy an apple. You know, I'm gonna hold up. If I were to go to that market and just look at the person and say, I want an apple, and they don't speak English, and I don't speak Japanese, and I don't know what the hell apple is in Japanese, and so we have this roadblock between us. But if I hold up an apple, say, apple, and they can tell me what it is in Japanese or whatever, and I go, how much, and you kind of get these little symbols again that we can communicate with. Is it shitty communication? Absolutely. Are they interpreting everything exactly as I am? Probably not. For all I know, they're thinking I'm telling them to go fuck themselves with this. I don't know. But we're getting somewhere. And that's why I feel like that's why I focus more on figurative painting. Do I have my fun with it? Yeah. Am I doing exactly the world that is out there? No. I'm trying to show you those little moments where, say if we go to the bridge I was just working on, the way the light will flicker just that 1 second. 1 little second off of the tip of the water, that catches that little bit of, the sun and catches that little bit of the sediment underneath. That's what I'm after. Does it mean there's no room for stuff like this? Absolutely not. I absolutely can find stuff in this. I just feel sometimes that I had some studio mates and stuff that I worked with in college that they kept pulling that bullshit of, I think the painting speaks for itself, when you would ask them about it. And it's like, it doesn't. If you're talking in your own language, I need something to talk to you about. I need you to give me a jumping off point. And that's where, you have to have some history of those types of artists, then you can work with it. I love Pollock. I love Rothko. I know about those guys, so I have a place to start with them. So when I'm at their paintings, I can see, especially the violence and the disturbed nature of them. A lot of people look at Rothko and think they're peaceful, and it's like, you don't know Rothko then. You're not familiar with him. You're not talking the same way that he is, because he's almost violent. That's why I'm trying to bring this up. Like I said, I like this piece, and it may be because I was literally like, I came across this one probably about 5 minutes after seeing the Monet. Because I was purposely driving out of my comfort zone and going into these. So, I just want to bring that up. That is like I say the name again one more time before I screw it up. Calaminez. It's their copyrights and stuff. I'm just trying to use it as an example. Hopefully I'm not like pissing them off if anybody ever shows them this. Where's my next one? No, I don't think this is a shock to anybody that knows me that I like this one. But speaking of storytellers, this is probably one of my favorite storytellers in art. Francisco de la Goya. This is Saturn devouring his children. Sometimes it's devouring his son. Take that how you want it. I love Goya. And again, talking about storytelling, Goya's paintings and drawings and etchings are so filled with storytelling. He's really phenomenal. If you're not familiar with it, this is actually the painting Negras is they're much darker. Towards the later end of his life, there's some questions actually people have about whether they were his or his sons, I believe, his grandson, something like that. But nonetheless, he was great with symbolism, wonderful storytelling, and I'm a huge fan of him. And the reason I'm bringing him up specifically is actually the last piece we're going to talk about tonight. And then I'm going to go in and hit the head. Copy this. So I think this is what I'm going to do. I think, because I really have been trying to rack my brain with what's next. What's next on this channel? So I figured we just slogged through this bridge that took forever. So what better way to get past it than to slog through another painting? That's going to take forever. Ta-da! I can't zoom in on this like I wanted to because I'm fucking... I don't think I can, right? No, that's not going to work on this. Ah, well. I'll zoom it up a little bit. I'll open up a little bit. El sueño de la razón produce monstruos. And I'm sure I'm butchering that because my Spanish is terrible. But the sleep of reason produces monsters. I want to play with this one really badly. And the reason I want to is just because it's something I've never done. First off, again, it kind of goes back and talking about the stuff that led to the breakdown in a lot of ways. As I was getting closer and closer to that final moment of February, before I actually was able to take the mental health leave and get on the medications and everything, there wasn't a night that went by that I didn't have a nightmare. Constant. They were constant. I could not sleep through the night at all. I barely do normally, but I couldn't get through one night at all without being woken up several times. And like I said, almost always terrified. I was having audio hallucinations, all sorts of stuff. So I'm still wanting to kind of talk about that stuff. And one of the things I really wanted to do about this, especially, I've never done a study of a black and white etching, drawing, and turned it into color. And that may not seem like much, but, flipping back to my master, it's something Vincent used to do a lot of. He had some paintings that he copied of, say, a Malay. Oh, excuse me. Or trying to think of some other ones, so like maybe like a Rembrandt. But a lot of times he's working off of prints that were not in color. They were mostly etchings and stuff that he had, or lithographs. So when you see some of those, like the Sower, now he may be remembering things sometimes, the painting he had seen. Trying to think of, I think it's the Meridian. The Millet where there's peasants laying underneath a haystack. Yeah, that's pretty much spot on color-wise to what Millet had done. So I think that's kind of cool, but there were other ones that he had done that were definitely from black and white prints, and he just interpreted the color as he saw fit, and it was kind of cool. And I want to do that with this one, so I think that's what we're doing next. So I'm gonna get a copy of this, and I'll load it up tomorrow before we start. And I really would like if anybody out here is wanting to, whatever. Like I said, I really do want to get to the point where this is a little more interactive, where we can actually talk about this stuff, and where you guys might be working with me, next to me, and submitting work, photos or whatever in the comments, or links to it, whatever, however it has to be done. I've opened it up so links are now open in the stream chat. Don't put anything dirty, I'll throw your ass out. But where we can get that kind of conversation going and talk a little bit more about, have critiques. I want it literally said. I'll say it time and time again. As we start working on paintings through here, do not feel shy for giving me a constructive criticism. Okay, but I as a specification, it has to be constructive. All right, I don't need anybody on here. You suck, asshole. Yeah. I don't need like the Rocket League constructive criticism, which is usually go kill yourself. Why are you playing this game? You should stay in unranked. That type of stuff. I don't need that stuff. I get enough of that in Rocket League. But I want to make it. I really do want this place to be somewhere where we can talk about art as a whole, not just about you guys sitting here watching me paint. Because God knows it's boring and I'm slow. I mean. Look, if I could get back the fire I had when I was 20 years old, oh, fuck, you guys would have loved watching me pull out two brushes sometimes and was smacking all over the craziness. Like, I mean, I really was fast. But I would like to subsidize that instead with having a little bit more conversational stuff. If I put this up, and look, if this painting takes me a month to get through, and it takes you guys a week, if we would work off of the same thing again. Fucking show me, I won't steal from you, I promise. And don't do it like I do it. I don't want to see that. I want to see how you guys do it, I don't want, like I said, I don't want to be Bob Ross and having everybody paint little happy trees exactly like I paint, my miserable fucks of trees. Like, I don't know. I hope this is making sense. And I hope that, I get to have that little bit of, this fantasy of mine. I can turn this into something. Because, again, when I went to school, and I had started originally, I had planned on becoming a teacher. And I kind of fell to the wayside because I got in my head I shouldn't be teaching without having accomplished something in art. And now I've thrown that out the window. You guys are getting as amateur of teachers you get. But I've done stuff. Technically, I've sold more paintings than my master did. I'm not throwing it out there. Just rubbing it in his face. When he was alive, I mean, now he beats the shit out of me that. But so I've had some accomplishments in it. So I feel like it's okay to start talking in this way. If for no other reason than the fact that, the pathway I had found myself on was a shitty fucking pathway. And in order to get back in the right spot, I had to do some deep digging on this stuff. And I had to start being able to think about it in ways that, maybe I had before, sort of, but everything I had to do had to get cranked up to 11. As far as the thought processes went. So, that's enough of my rambling bullshit. It's a little earlier than, I guess I normally end on a Wednesday night. But I think we're going to wrap it up. I'll urge everybody who sees this, be it here or on YouTube, head over to my Facebook page to see slightly better photos of this stuff. If you're ever in Pennsylvania right now, I've got some stuff with the Chester County Art Association up in Exton. Trying for a couple other shows so far. Not so good, as far as my ability to get them is gone. But, we keep working. We keep fighting. And that's all we can do. I fall back a lot of times to the Manet quote that, every painting is like jumping in the water without knowing how to swim. But, and as accurate as that is, I also say to you that every painting is a fucking fight. It really is. At least to me. I always say that, that canvas does not want me to find the painting. And that's what I do. I'm not, I almost interpret it that even though, yes, my paint's very thick, I'm not putting the paint on the canvas. I'm pulling it out of it. That makes it, whack a sense. At least 9 times out of 10 I am. And there's every now and then, like I said, I've mentioned previously, there was one painting I did recently that I don't even feel I was painting it. I wasn't in control. It was somebody else was listening. I was listening to someone else's music, and that was all that was happening. And then I'd wake up and be like, "Oh, there's more painting." Yeah, but anyway, so this is our first little resting point. I didn't really know what I was going to do yet for tomorrow, but I think I'm settling on this because this has been in my head for a while now. This Goya study, so I think it's just time to go let it out. I've got a bunch of small canvases. So after this one, what's probably going to happen is we will probably go to something a little simpler. As a little bit of like a, rinse your mouth out type thing. Just to lighten the moods after this one. Because I think that with this bridge being as hectic as it was, as heavy as it was, and then going into something like this, it's gonna be a rough one. I'm not gonna lie. It's going to be painful. Not going to be much lube. But what I want to do with it, if I can pull it off, I think it's got a lot of potential. I'll give everybody a little hint of my thoughts on this one. This one's going to be nauseating to look at. All right. And what I mean by that is I plan on using a lot of funky color contrast. Again, going with complementary colors, but like not in a complementary way. I'd kind of written some notes down on what my thoughts were on it. So I want you just to all be ready for that this is not going to be a pleasant painting. But it should be an interesting one. So with that, I bid you adieu. I'm going to kill the last drops of this and then head to bed. So everyone have a good night, and tomorrow we begin work again.